Aleesha. Welcome to the Australian Education Times.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
When did you decide that you wanted to become an author?
That's a very good question. I think I've always loved books and reading. But when I was a teenager, I entered a few short story competitions and I won some prizes. And I thought, maybe I could do something with this. So that was when I was about 16, but a lot of people said, it's too hard being an author. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go to university and I'll study marketing instead. And it wasn't until maybe about 8 years ago that I decided that this little voice inside my head telling me, you need to be writing, you need to be an author, that I should start listening to that voice. And then I started, going to workshops and writing lots of things, and then I started getting published. So I kind of wish I'd started a little bit earlier, but I'm glad I started when I did. And now I have 20 books published, 20 books in 4 years, so I've been a little bit busy, yeah.
If you weren't an author, what would you be?
If I wasn't an author, I'd like to be an adventurer or an archaeologist, something interesting like that. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah? I think that'd be fun.
What was your favourite subject at school and why?
Well, it had to involve books, didn't it? I've always loved school and loved reading, so I loved all of primary school. There wasn't a subject that I didn't enjoy. Even sport was pretty good. I enjoyed that. But when I got to high school, it was definitely English, studying literature and getting to read books and do lots of exciting projects and research on authors and things like that. So I really did love English. Yeah.
Where do you find your inspiration for your stories?
My inspiration, that comes from all around me, from people I meet, from places I go to, from things that I hear. You might hear a conversation down at the mall or at the shops, people talking. I think, that would make a really good conversation, a good bit of dialogue for a story. Or, that would, if you see someone, how they're dressed or how they look, you might think, wow, that's a really interesting character. I'd love to know more about them. And then sometimes you can just use your imagination. I don't know whether you've ever been writing at school or at home and an idea for a story or a character just pops into your mind and you start writing it down and it just flows from there. So there's lots of different places where you can find your inspiration. It's all around us.
How long does it take you to write a book?
That is another very good question. Every book's different, and I write picture books and I write chapter books. I write novels as well, so they all take different amounts of time. You still have to put the same amount of care into each word that you're creating. I think if it's something like Ash Rover, which is a novel, that's 40,000 words. So that would probably take me about 6 months to write and edit and rewrite before I'm ready for other people to start reading it. Whereas a picture book, because that's probably only 400 or 500 words usually, you might get those ideas out quickly, but then you still have to edit your work. One of my picture books, Warambi, I edited it 30 times before I sent it to a publisher. So it can still take you several months to get that down and get it right before you're ready to share it with others. Yeah.
In your opinion, why is reading and creating writing so important for children?
Well, it's important for children and for adults. I hope, you don't just read when you're young, that you get a chance and time to read when you're older too. Reading is a real joy, and it teaches you a lot of things, not just academically, but socially, emotionally, spiritually, and it really helps improve your imagination as well and keep you young at heart and young in your mind. In terms of creative writing, I think that's important because it's all about self-expression. It's about sharing your ideas with others and communicating those ideas and just allowing your thoughts to flow onto paper and, perhaps someone reading them one day. Yeah, so it's all about self-expression, I think.
What was your favourite kids' book as a child?
I did read quite a lot of books, anything I could get my hands on, but the one that has always stuck with me was The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Have you ever read that before, the Narnia series?
Yes.
Yeah. and they've made them into movies nowadays. They're very interesting. It's a fantasy series, and in this line, The Witch in the Wardrobe, the youngest girl, Lucy, goes to this special other world called Narnia through a wardrobe. So, but you know, they have all sorts of adventures there, and it's really wonderful story that I could just escape into and get caught up in with the characters and, you know, the dramatic things that were happening, and it's always just stayed with me for all of my life. Yeah, so that was pretty special for me.
Of the books you have written, which was the most challenging to write?
They all present their own challenges, but I think Ash Rover, this one here, probably because it is the longest one, that I think the editing process was quite difficult. The story actually came to me one night when I was on holidays, and I couldn't sleep. My mind was just racing. So I got up and I wrote all the story down, as much as the plot and dialogue and characters that I could find, that kept coming to me until I could actually, you know, sleep. It was just all in my mind. But then I had to sit down and write it and structure it properly and get it to a stage, again, where it was ready to read for others. And it does take a lot of time, and I think when you're busy as an author, I've got children as well, there's only so much time in the day that you can work in a novel and immerse yourself in it, so it can be quite difficult to keep the momentum going with it. Yeah.
There are lots of animals in your books. Did you have many pets growing up?
I had lots of pets when I was growing up. We lived on a farm. It's probably what you call a hobby farm, because my dad worked in town, but we had a little farm where we had horses and ducks and cows and chickens, all those sort of things. Lots and lots of animals, rabbits, but we also lived in the country, and there was bush and forest all around us, and we had a property right up in the mountains, and so there were snakes there were possums, there were koalas, there were lots of wallabies and goannas, all sorts of animals. So they're always around me, which is why I love animals. Do you like animals?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you like animals?
Yes.
Yep. And I love to put them in my stories as well. And I think most humans love animals, and they've got companion pets and dogs and cats and birds. So I think it's important to have those animals, those creatures in our stories too.
What advice would you give to our young readers who would love to become an author?
For anyone who wants to become an author, I would say keep practicing, keep writing, keep reading as much as you possibly can. Any books, if you're at the library or the bookstore, that catch your eye, take them home and read them. Because what you're doing is absorbing, even if you don't realise it, how other writers work, and then that will show in your work. And it can be quite inspirational reading other authors' work as well. It can give you ideas and help improve your imagination. But you know, there are competitions that you can enter, even when you're your age, writing competitions where you can be practicing your writing. And sometimes you can win some great prizes too. So that keeps you interested, involved, and just the big one for me is never give up. Never ever give up, because you never know what's around the corner. You just keep trying with your writing. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Aleesha, for your time.
Oh, thank you, Sienna. Thank you, Tiana. It's been a pleasure.